My name is Katherine Grant, and this is my action research project. The first step in my action research project is to choose a topic. First, I need to find a topic that interests me. Once I have determined a topic, I will need to narrow it down to be more specific. Then, I will decide if my topic meets what I want to focus on and study. This means that lastly, I need to answer the why, who, what, and when my topic is about. So choosing my topic. First, I decided on a topic of interest, which was behavior in the classroom. This is a topic of interest to me because I find I often have students each year who need more behavior intervention than what we are providing on a school-wide level. Then, I narrowed down my topic to behavior interventions from in-class to online learning for elementary students, because right now we are learning online. This meets the criteria I want to define and study because I want to find out what behavior interventions would limit negative behaviors for my students online, even if the interventions are designed for in-class learning. Through the criteria to determine a topic, I also came up with my why, who, what, and when of my topic. My why is so my students are motivated to learn and act appropriately. The who is primary age students. What I want to accomplish is decreasing negative behaviors, and when is daily during online learning. After determining the details of my research topic, I was able to create my research question. My question is, can behavior interventions, including whole class interventions, limit off-task behaviors in an early elementary online setting? The next step in my action research project was to complete a literature review. During this, I looked into 3 online resources, 5 scholarly articles, and 2 books. From the literature review, I learned that the 4 key features of positive behavior intervention systems are clearly defined outcomes, data-based decision-making, research-validated practices, and high-fidelity implementation. When implementing rules and classroom procedures, online interactions and in-school interactions should be treated the same. This includes setting and behavioral expectations. Through creating a literature review, I also learned that self-regulation is an important component of several different behavior interventions. This can be done through forethought of how a student wants to behave, their actual performance, and then reflecting on their behavior they displayed. For younger students, this could be as simple as showing them the rules and asking if they followed them. Looking into specific interventions, studies on individualized interventions such as check-ins, check-out, and self-regulated learning have decreased negative behaviors. Also, when it comes to implementing any interventions, they need to be implemented with fidelity in order to have the potential to yield maximum results. The next thing I did was look into colleague collaboration. Collaboration with colleagues during action research is important because they can be a valuable source of information. This information can be collected through interviews and surveys. Both can elicit needed information on how to implement research, how to troubleshoot research, and even provide new information, such as new interventions to use during my research. For my project, I would interview teachers in order to gain information about interviews and interventions that I could provide to my students. Also, negative behaviors that they see in their classrooms that they would like changed through interventions. To begin collecting data, I need to determine where my data will come from. The three sources of a triangulation of data that I would use are teacher interviews, scholarly articles, and observation. I plan on collecting both quantitative data, which is data that can be counted or compared on a numerical scale, and qualitative data, which is data usually collected in a narrative form. Specifically, the qualitative data I plan on using is interviews and observations. Looking more specifically into my data collection, my teacher interviews will be conducted in order to gain information about how the students are performing under the school-wide PBIS system, which is Positive Behavior Intervention System, as well as what other interventions they are implementing and what they observe about students' performance and behavior. The scholarly journals will be used to collect data on how students performed based on studies surrounding specific behavior intervention systems. My third data to be collected would be observation data in my own classroom. This will be collected on a chart where students can earn 1 point per login period for each of the three desired behaviors. It would be collected by a teacher researcher or classroom observer. The goal is to identify if the interventions are motivating students to stay on task by staying on mute, responding to questions, and attending to the screen. I need to then decide how I will analyze the surveys and articles. I would start this by identifying any trends in what teachers are using in their classroom and the effectiveness. I would then organize these interventions by what did work for others and what did not. From here, I could use what I learned to identify further research I may need, such as finding more articles or conducting another round of interviews for clarification. On this slide, this is what my observational data chart would look like. It has our three logins, the behaviors I am looking for, and a place for the student name and date. I also put a symbol to remind myself to put a star next to the students who are using interventions other than the PBIS intervention at our school. I then plan on analyzing the data by comparing student performance to themselves for each lesson each day. This way, I can easily notice patterns in data based on where students often gain or lack points. If a student needs their intervention changed, I can compare their performance during the old intervention to the new intervention. Data analysis allows researchers to make discoveries about their research topic. Potential discoveries that can occur from my data collection and analysis process include students can be engaged in online learning with the correct behavior interventions. Negative behaviors can diminish with a more individualized intervention. And some students may become periodically bored with the reward systems in place. So behaviors that were diminished may end up reoccurring. So what can happen next based on potential discoveries? For the first potential discovery of students being engaged in online learning with the behavior interventions, I would continue to implement more individualized behavior interventions. For students who are continuing to struggle behaviorally, I could continue to try out different interventions in order to find the best match, only after each intervention has been given enough time for the student to learn about it, try it, and see its effectiveness. The next discovery negative behaviors will diminish with a more individualized intervention. So the next steps for this would be to provide students with an intervention that meets their needs, even if they were the only ones in the classroom using it. I would also create checkpoints to continuously analyze data to determine what is working and what is not working with the intervention in place. This means looking for patterns each day to see where they're still not gaining their points. My third potential discovery was that students may become periodically bored with reward system in place, so behaviors that were diminished may occur again. The next steps for this is to frequently change rewards in order to provide new things for students to earn. Also, providing an interest survey to the students in order to determine what rewards they would like to work for. Differentiation plays an important part in education, and this includes with behavior interventions. This is because every student learns differently, including when it comes to behavior. Each student may need a different intervention or even different parts of an intervention in order to feel motivated and display positive behaviors. This differentiation also includes, but is not limited to, the praise received and in what increments, student-led or teacher-led monitoring, and types of rewards received, both physical and verbal. Once data, potential outcomes, and differentiation are identified, it can be shared. For my action research project, my research audience would be primary elementary team members during long-range planning or any other meetings, parents through parent-teacher conferences, and support staff during their meetings. Support staff includes guidance counselors, special education teachers, instructional assistants, and even the pupil personnel worker. The first group I would share my research with is my fellow primary level teachers during our long range planning, or another planning if needed. Long range planning is when we get a half day to plan lessons and share ideas with ourselves and our instructional leadership team. I would share my data about various behavior interventions used in the classroom and how they affect my students, both positively and negatively. I would also provide a handout explaining the different interventions and how to implement them online based on my own experiences. I would share my research with parents during individual conferences in order to discuss student progress, both academically and emotionally, based on the interventions used. I would do this by providing a visual of their students' behavior progress, as well as strategies to keep students engaged and on task at home. Parents often have a great idea about what their students need, and this could be a time for them to share with me what they think their students may need to be added or taken away from an intervention in order to succeed. The third audience, support staff, will be shared the information during their monthly meetings. I would share charts that I use to take data, have a question and answer session about the interventions in my classroom, and for the staff who work specifically with some of my students, they will receive a copy of their behavior progression data so that they can work with the students from where they are working in my classroom behaviorally. Finally, I need to identify my steps in continuing my action research. I would continue to implement and take data on student behavior in my own classroom. I would also periodically change interventions for those who are showing a negative trend in behaviors. Fellow teachers are a great source of information. Therefore, I would continue to provide questionnaires to see how the interventions are continuing to go in their classroom, and especially if they have switched to using any interventions that I have shared with them, how their students performing as well. My final slides in my presentation are my references that I used for my project.